Chief Collaborator Experience Officer. Not many people have that title. In fact, a few searches on LinkedIn and Google showed me that I may be the only one in the world. When I meet up with other heads of HR at networking events or professional peer groups, I wear the little sticker with my name and my title, and I get a lot of strange looks. Like, maybe I don't belong, or maybe I'm in the wrong place. Why am I there? So in a sea of chief human resource officers, vice presidents of HR, and even a few chief people officers, I stand out as far as my title. But it gives me a chance to talk about why we call each other collaborators instead of employees at Nightingale. At Nightingale Education Group, we use the word collaborator intentionally because meaningful work is rarely done alone. Collaboration reflects shared purpose, mutual responsibility, and the belief that real impact is created together. Now, before Nightingale, I had a very different experience of how organizations thought about people. And one conversation in particular has stayed with me. Years ago, I worked with a CEO who was widely respected, smart, thoughtful, and by almost every measure, successful. The company was in a really good place. Revenue was strong, we were growing, but there was a problem we couldn't ignore. We were struggling to attract and retain the talent we needed to keep growing. So I partnered with the CEO, and he agreed something needed to be done. I did my research, and what I found was clear. Our benefits were not competitive. So I listened to what people actually needed, and I put together what I thought was a creative plan. It addressed real pain points, and I believed it could make a meaningful difference. So I walked into the meeting with the CEO ready. I presented the plan. I talked through the ideas. I explained the impact. And when I finished, he didn't react the way I expected. The CEO wasn't dismissive. He was calm, reasonable, thoughtful. His concern was cost, which was fair. Fiscal responsibility matters, especially in a growing organization. So I said, that makes sense. Can you give me an idea of the budget we can afford? I can work out how to create the best impact with what we have. And he paused. And then he said something that has stuck with me for years. He said, what's the least we can spend and still have some kind of an impact? I wasn't surprised by this response. I've heard similar versions of that question throughout my career in HR. Here was a company making significant investments in other areas, but not in its people. Now, to be clear, we ended up having a very productive conversation. We landed in a good place, improved the benefits, and saw real results. But that question has stayed with me. What's the least we can spend? Because it revealed a mindset. It framed people as a cost to manage, not a capability to invest in. It turned a conversation about care and sustainability into a math problem. And in that moment, I realized something that's shaped how I think about work ever since. The difference between organizations that struggle with burnout and turnover and those that thrive isn't usually money. It's mindset. One mindset asks, what's the least we can do? The other asks, what's possible if we truly believe people are our greatest advantage? And the future of work depends on which question we choose to lead with. This isn't just a theory, the data backs it up. What if the future of work was not defined by burnout, endless hustle, or the idea that doing more with less is simply the cost of success? What if instead it was defined by a bold commitment to our greatest asset, our people? At Nightingale Education Group, we asked a simple but radical question. What happens if we do the most we can for our collaborators instead of the least? What we discovered was not chaos or declining performance or people taking advantage of the system. We discovered something far more powerful, a self-sustaining cycle of success. For us, it looks like lower turnover, higher satisfaction, and our collaborators helping more nurses graduate ready to make a difference in the world. When people feel valued, supported, and trusted, they bring their best thinking, their best energy, and their best creativity to the table. That performance creates better outcomes, which then allow us to invest even more back into them. Over time, success compounds, not by extracting more from people, but by building more with them. And this is where many organizations get stuck. They ask, how much should we invest? Which benefits will deliver the biggest return? And what's the minimum we can do and still remain competitive? But this, again, isn't a math equation. It's not a formula. And it's not about finding the perfect combination of incentives and benefits that magically fixes everything. The future of work is not built on a spreadsheet. It's built on a mindset that starts by asking a different question. What would this look like if we genuinely believed our people are our greatest advantage? Not a cost to manage, but a capacity to grow. When you start there, the conversation changes. You stop optimizing for control, and you start designing for trust. Because the way we work today didn't happen by accident. It was designed for a different era, an era defined by rigid schedules, manual tasks, and limited technology. But we're no longer constrained by those realities. Artificial intelligence is rapidly changing how work gets done. And the most important question isn't whether AI will replace humans, it's whether we will use it to amplify human potential. Imagine nurses spending less time burdened with charting and paperwork and more time with patients. Educators spending less time grading and more time mentoring. Innovators spending less time on repetitive tasks and more time solving meaningful problems. That's not about doing less work. That's about doing more meaningful work. Work that only humans can do. Now imagine what happens outside of work. Parents at the playground instead of stuck late at the office. Individuals out to dinner with friends instead of at the kitchen table on their laptop. People with the time and energy to explore passions they never had room for before. This isn't a fantasy, it's a design choice. At Nightingale, this future is already taking shape. It looks like benefits that address all 8 dimensions of wellness, paid parental leave that reflects real life, and wellness and personal time that acknowledges we are whole humans, not just job titles. Dr. Peggy Swarbrick's 8 dimensions of wellness remind us that work doesn't exist in a vacuum. Emotional, physical, financial, social, and occupational well-being are all interconnected. When we design work with that whole reality in mind, performance improves. Not because we demand more, but because people have more to give. And collaboration here isn't just a value, it's a practice of exchanging ideas, organizing expertise, and taking shared action together in pursuit of a shared goal. But here's the most important part. We don't pretend to have the final answer for what the future of work should look like. Maybe it's a 4-day work week, 6-hour workdays. Maybe it's something entirely different that hasn't even been named yet. What matters is not the structure, it's the intention behind it. We've decided to treat work as something we design with care, not something we inherit by default. We test, we learn, we evolve. Because when people have balance, dignity, and purpose, performance follows. The future of work is not a perk. It's not a benefit package. And it's definitely not a productivity hack. It's a choice to move from scarcity to abundance, from measuring hours to measuring impact, from asking how much we can take from people to asking how much we can build with them. Because when we build workplaces where people truly thrive, we don't just change how we work, we change how we live. Thank you.